The Auburn Tigers and the Arkansas Razorbacks prepare to do battle at Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn, Alabama, and we are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game. The SEC Unfiltered Game of the Weekend, as we'll be on hand to take in all of the action. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Dave Shumate. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. We're brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com. Use promo code SECU at sign up to receive $50 instantly when you play your first $5 or more lineup. Again, guys, it's prizepicks.com. Promo code SECU to get your $50 bonus today. What some are calling the most intriguing SEC matchup of Week 4, the Auburn Tigers and the Arkansas Razorbacks square off, and both feel like it's theirs to have in a much-needed contest for both sides. And what do you know? SEC Unfiltered will be on hand for this one as we embark on the plains to take in all the action as the SEC Unfiltered tour lands at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Again, we are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game, and helping me do so is a man that will be with me on site on Saturday, my good friend Dave Shumate. Dave, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time. I'm going to share with the folks a fun fact, by the way, because we do everything digitally right. You and I have been working together for quite some time. What folks may not realize, you and I have never actually met in person before, unless my memory.
Never met in person.
Never met in person. So our first ever time will be to take in this beautiful matchup between the Auburn Tigers and the Arkansas Razorbacks. Dave, again, excited to break down this one with you and excited to take in this game with you on Saturday.
Yeah, CP. So I get to meet you, which is a check the box number one. And then I go back to the Plains where I worked in 2016. So I played there, worked in recruiting, played there. I said, worked there in 2016. That was the Sugar Bowl year where Baker Mayfield them got after us in the Sugar Bowl after he had a big night at O'Hara's. But no, it was Auburn's a good place, good town. I'm excited to get down there and first and foremost, formally shake the hand of Chris Phillips, but also be on the plains for, I think you said it, CP. I think one of the more interesting, if not probably at least interesting, could be that drunk game of the SEC week we always see. And honestly, could be maybe the more impactful game when you want to get right to it, talking about teams' aspirations and goals in front of them. Because you talked about in Sunday Fun Day, and Cole talked about it as well. The loser of this is going to be similar to South Carolina, Kentucky. They're going to feel really bad. Somebody's going to feel really bad losing this game. But I'm excited. It should be a fun one.
Dave, when you talk about SEC unhinged, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this one's got the most potential to get a little wonky, get a little sideways, and that equates to a lot of fun for us taking in this game and maybe a lot of heartache for both fan bases until the clock's at zero. By the way, I've been hitting up my Auburn buddies, those that have recommendations out there. Feel free to drop them in the comments, but I guess I should have been reaching out to you. So you can let me know where I should go for dinner on Friday, where I should go out on the town Friday night. I'll be taking all recommendations, Dave, from you. So if you got anything, you can.
Good.
Hamilton's.
Good bar, good restaurant. Right. They got these, what was it? It was like the seafood, like chip plate appetizer. It's like these like pub chips. They do like some of the, if I remember right, they do some seasoning, put some shrimp. It's pretty good. Hamilton's a good spot.
We'll talk more off air, Dave, for sure. But again, this matchup, Saturday, September the 21st, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, 2:30 local time kickoff on ESPN at Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn, Alabama. The Auburn Tigers, Dave, are a 4.5-point favorite in this game. The over-under set at 55.5. The series history, Auburn leads 20-12-1. And who can forget, Dave, the last meeting last year, Auburn embarrassed the Hogs down there in Fayetteville.
Probably Auburn's best game.
48-10 was the final score, a game in which they rushed for over 300 yards in that game. Really dominated Arkansas, and that was an Arkansas team, obviously. Late in the season, it kind of felt like was down and out. Things were starting to slip under Sam Pittman, and of course, they'll be looking for a much better showing this go around. So, Dave, as we dive into this game, look at the matchup, we have to start with this. What makes this game so fascinating, you mentioned, this game, I agree with you, Dave, has got the most potential to be that drunk SEC game, where it's just, you're watching this game, we're going to be watching this game in person, you're just thinking to yourself, what is going on? Like who wants to win this game, right? I think it could be one of those where it's just back and forth and back and forth. And one of the reasons, Dave, at least on the Auburn side of things, for so much uncertainty, the Hank Brown era is in full effect. Obviously, you look at his game against New Mexico. Granted, it's New Mexico, but he was efficient, Dave. You know, he's got this gunslinger sort of a reputation, mentality, if you will. You saw him throw the football around. You saw him put some nice touch on some deep balls. 4 touchdowns. The big one, though, Dave, no interceptions. You like to see that 0, that goose egg in the interception column. But, Dave, anybody who tells you they know what they're going to get, they know what to expect from Hank Brown in his first SEC start, they're lying to you, because nobody knows what we're going to get from this kid. I have this kind of nervous excitement, because the thing with Auburn that I felt like in the preseason, why I was so hesitant on them, Dave, was the quarterback position, because I think they've got receivers. I like Jarquez Hunter at the running back spot. I think the offensive line's good enough. Like, they've got weapons. Is Hank Brown the right trigger man? We're going to get a lot more answers on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like right now, I mean, again, it's New Mexico, but I feel like you got to go with him. I think you got to roll with him. That's the best your offense has looked all year. Granted, it's a 3-game sample size, but 17 for 25, 235, 4 touchdowns. And like you said, Chris, the most important stat, especially in this kind of situation that Hugh Freeze, Ken Austin, and them, Derek Nix are in, is, I mean, this is the best quarterback performance he's been in. I think 0 turnovers is critical. I think this is similar to the A&M Florida game this past week we just saw. Me and you talked about that when we previewed. Like, you could write that script a million times, and I think I'd believe you in this game. I think I would. But I think, yeah, the big key here is what are we going to see with Auburn and with Hank Brown? Obviously, I think they're going to be a little bit more dynamic from a play calling standpoint in this game. I could see it early, maybe them just dipping it off to Jarquez Hunter, who I think is one of the more underrated players in the league. He doesn't get talked about a lot. And to be fair, because he hasn't really been on a good team recently. But I could see them checking it down to him a little bit, because I do think Travis Williams, which is another storyline here, former Auburn linebacker, coached at Auburn, I think his first year was my first year, 16 through 20 until Coach Malzahn got let go. He's an Auburn alum, played next to Carlos Dansby in the 03-04 team, coach there, like I mentioned. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder in this one. Marcus Woodson's the safeties coach. He's coached at Auburn. I think they're going to be schemed up well. They're going to be aggressive. I mean, I think T. Will was it 52 plays last year, Sam Pittman said at media days or something, that they were in cover 0. I think they're going to throw the kitchen sink at Hank Brown. I really don't blame them. I mean, I probably would too. Like, hey, we may give up some explosives, guys, but if we can hit this guy, and he maybe gives up and we give up a 15-yard pass, so be it. He's going to be thinking about that next play. He sees us blitzing that A-gap. He may be throwing off his back foot a little more because we hit him right in the sternum. It's stuff like that. T-Will's players play for him like I've never seen another defense coordinator. Yeah, he has holes as a scheme guy, I do think, but his players do play hard. They didn't play well this past week. I think you're going to see a better performance from Arkansas this week, but you're right. It all starts with Hank Brown. Like, that's going to be the big storyline heading into this one.
And I don't think, Dave, Hank Brown's necessarily got to be a hero. Like, he's got the weapons, right? It's just, don't make the critical mistakes that we saw Peyton Thorne make. Again, the 4 interceptions against Cal a couple weeks ago. Like, I don't think he's got to go out there and throw for 400 yards and be otherworldly. Again,
don't lose the game.
Don't lose the game. Like, you've got, let your big-time players make big-time plays, and I think they're going to do that, and they've got enough on the outside. Speaking of one of those guys, Dave, a guy that last year gave Arkansas fits, Jarquez Hunter, 109 yards rushing in that game a season ago. Again, I know it's last season, but still it's significant. 109 rushing, 6.8 yards per carry in that game last season. You think, I mean, listen, what's going to help a young quarterback, or what's going to help a new quarterback out, I should say? A solid run game. So I think attacking Arkansas, like you mentioned, though, but if they're stacking that box, they're filling the run gaps, if they're going to make Hank Brown beat him, you got to think, too, you mentioned it's a really fun storyline. There's some really fun, like the coordinator matchups, Dave, the coaching matchups with, Hugh Freeze on the offensive side taking on Travis Williams from Arkansas. And then on the flip side, we're going to talk about in a second, Bobby Petrino against DJ Durkin. I mean, does it get much better than that when it comes to –
They work together.
Yeah, they work together at Texas A&M. Does it get better than minds colliding, if you will? So, I would imagine, to your point, Dave, you got to think and see what you think here. You got to think that Travis Williams, they're going to take away or try to take away Jarquez Hunter. And again, they're going to put it all on Hank Brown and say, you know what, if you beat us, we'll tip the cap. But we're not going to let Jarquez get going and let you establish that run game and establish that balance.
Yeah, where I could see Jarquez getting hot a little early is if Freeze, Derek Nix, Ken Austin sense Arkansas is going to be aggressive, and they are. I mean, that's part. I think T. Will would tell you I'm going to be aggressive. You just don't know when I'm going to be. They're going to be aggressive. If they're aggressive early, I could see Auburn running a bunch of screens with Jarquez Hunter to kind of back Arkansas off. Like, kind of like, hey, dude, you keep coming. We're going to dish it off in the flat or on a design screen like that. And that's where I could see Jarquez Hunter getting the hot hand initially on that hot read. And then if Arkansas sits back a little bit, which they won't be comfortable, that's when I think the turnovers from Hank Brown potentially could come in if he's not reading the defense well. Also, Auburn put a couple of balls on the ground yesterday that they got back. And that's going to be, I think, turnovers in this game is going to be critical for both teams. Taylon Green, quarterback at Arkansas, didn't look great yesterday. Hank Brown, as you mentioned, first SEC start, Chris. Turnovers are going to be key. As we saw against Arkansas, ended up shooting themselves in the foot in the game they probably should have won 2 weeks ago in Stillwater. Turnovers, penalties killed them. I think that's going to be the storyline for this game for both teams.
Dave, I'm going to get in the turnover thing in just a second, but I do want to highlight the status of Cam Coleman. He did not play in the game against New Mexico. Talked to some of my Auburn folks down there. That was precautionary holding him out. He is likely to go against Arkansas, a.k.a. I would be shocked if he did not.
Remember, he's banged up at the end of that Cal game because they were talking about
Peyton grabbing his shoulder. Grabbing his shoulder. So, again, holding him out precautionary, good to go. I wanted to make sure before we came on here and talked and discussed this, wanted to make sure we got the status on him. He should be good to go. So, again, you got Cam Coleman, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Rivaldo Fairweather. Like, they've got the weapons, I think, on the outside to really give Arkansas some fits. Again, it's an Arkansas defense that, like Travis Williams a lot, but they've been gettable this year. Like, there's no doubt. They have been absolutely gettable, and I think Auburn can do it. If Hank Brown can be the right trigger man, not make mistakes, be selective when he takes his shots, be smart with the football, I think, Dave, they can really work this Arkansas secondary and work this Arkansas defense. You mentioned the turnovers. I do want to highlight that because, to your point, we talked about this. This is a game that we could see being kind of that drunk game of the weekend. I think this is one of the reasons why. We know what Arkansas did with the football against Oklahoma State. Shot themselves in the foot, gave that football game away. That's going to be a point of emphasis for them. You mentioned Taylon Green did not throw a touchdown against UAB this past weekend, had the one interception. He did not look good in that game. Arkansas sluggishly got a 10-point win in that one, finally kind of got going late and, again, pulled out the victory. How much stock do you really put in that game? I think a hangover effect from the Yoki State game. How fired up are you to play UAB? Maybe the guys.
A disappointing win, maybe a decent term.
Right. A disappointing win. I think that's fair. I mean, especially when you're a 21-point favorite or whatever they were. And then Auburn. I found this stat, Dave. It jumped off the page at me. Through 3 games, the Auburn Tigers have fumbled the football 9 times. They have lost 5 of them.
I think they put 2 or 3 more on the ground yesterday without fully. I've watched 3 quarters of the replay. I hadn't watched the 4th quarter. And they put 2 or 3 on the ground. I can't remember that they got back. Yeah. You're right. I don't know if you're.
Yeah, they've lost 5 of them. So, like, to your point, they've got 4 back, but they have fumbled the football 9 times. Man. I'm not going to hold the interception numbers against them because if you do that, 13 turnovers, or I should say 13 total. They haven't lost them all, obviously, but 9 total turnovers with the 4 interceptions that Peyton Thorne's thrown. So I'm not going to hold that against them because obviously Hank Brown is our starting quarterback now, or Auburn's starting quarterback, I should say. But turnovers, huge point of emphasis, Dave. I know that's low-hanging fruit, but in a game like this where it's such a coin flip, that is the thing that can absolutely be the difference.
Oh, no, completely. Like you said, it's the low-hanging fruit. It's a good way to put it, CP. I mean, that you could say it about most football games. But truly here, because I think both teams are going to get their explosives offensively. Probably going to come down to who plays better defense in the red zone, who can hold somebody to field goals, who has those critical turnovers, who plays better between Taylon Green and Hank Brown. I mean, we've seen Hank Brown in one game. We've seen Taylon Green look pretty good. We've seen his ceiling. It's pretty good. We've also seen his floor, though. It's a little low. So, I mean, what Taylon Green are we getting in his first SEC road start? Now, if you're Arkansas, you've been in a tough road environment already, so I don't really know how – I mean, don't get me wrong. Jordan-Hare's a much tougher place to play than T-Boone Pickens stadiums. I've been in both. But – again, I don't think it's going to be overwhelming from that perspective. But I do think whoever makes the critical mistakes between these two, I think because the rest of the teams, they all have the rest of them have their holes. I mean, the defense, both defenses have their holes from a personnel standpoint. It's going to come. I think Bobby Petrino, one of the best schemers, he'll have a great game plan coming into it. Adjustments will be key for both these teams. I'm talking about it now, CP. I mean, I'm fired up about this game. Because like you said, this could go a number of different ways. And there's so many factors that are going to contribute to who wins this game on Saturday.
Well, and you mentioned, Dave, too, the matchup when it's Auburn fans are very, very unsettled right now when it comes to the defensive side of the football. Maybe that little bit of a lack of athleticism. And how much of that is playing against New Mexico, right? You look a little bit sluggish. But, I mean, I go back to that Cal game, Dave. They were able to throw it around the yard a little bit. And I know Taylor Green did not play a good football game against UAB. Again, I don't – if it becomes a trend this weekend, and maybe we can start to talk about it more, but I look more at what they did against Oklahoma State, and I love this group of Arkansas receivers. I mean, Andrew Armstrong, Satania, the list goes on and on these big time.
They got a bunch of winnable guys. Yeah, they
yeah.
do, but you said they got a lot of guys as a group that you could go win with on Saturdays.
You're right. I like that group a lot. I think they're extremely underrated. Now you've got a guy in Taylor Green that is dynamic back there that can obviously get outside the pocket, extend the play. He makes life even more difficult on a defense. So I'm kind of curious how Auburn responds, right? I mean, I think they're going to hear a lot this week about how sluggish they were and how bad they were against New Mexico. And, I think there's probably better personnel in that defense, Dave, than they showed in that game. I know there's better personnel than they showed in that game, but this is a different test, man. I mean, this is a different test. I think it's a dynamic offense. That over-under total set at 55.5 for a reason. I think they're expecting points in this game, and I'm expecting points as well. I mean, again, I think both these offenses, if Hank Brown is just serviceable and does not put Auburn in bad situations and is able to get the ball to playmakers, I think both offenses are going to score in this one.
No, I mean, CP, to a good point here. The quarterback yesterday for New Mexico, for the Lobos, Devin Dampier, very similar play style to Taylor Green. And I think a lot of that because his ability to improvise, get outside the pocket. We've seen that with Taylor Green against Arkansas Pine Bluff. I know it's Arkansas Pine Bluff. We saw that the next week at times, good and bad, against Oklahoma State. Similar, and we saw Auburn last night. A lot of busts because DBs were so worried about Dampier getting out on the edge. They were coming up and they were leaving. It wasn't like New Mexico was making plays over dudes. It was like they were mossing them or just, it's like, man, there were guys just one-on-one. He's just better. I mean, there were a lot of busted coverages. So positive for Auburn, you just saw a guy that's going to play similar. So you can go fix that on tape and be like, hey, man, you got to stay with your man. We all got to do our assignments, all 11 of us. Hey, this is essentially what we're going to see, but on a better level this week, guys. So it's not going to be foreign to you. And if you're Arkansas, if you're Bobby Petrino and then be like, man, their corners really eye that quarterback if they think he can get on that edge, guys. We're going to have an opportunity to hit some explosive plays of the year. Who probably improves that during the week? Because Auburn on Saturday against New Mexico with Dampier, that was bad. There was a lot of busted coverages. If they have that this weekend, I'll already go say Arkansas will win by double digits if they do that consistently again.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting week for the Auburn defense, Dave, specifically. Again, I think the way folks, like I just mentioned, are going to talk about them. I'm very curious how they respond. And, lastly, Dave, that matchup, like I said, Bobby Petrino and DJ Durkin, the familiarity there, like you mentioned, guys that worked together last year at Texas A&M, two of the best minds in college football, I would say, respectively, on their side of the ball. That cat and mouse game is going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome to watch, man. And two guys that are very prideful. They take a lot of pride in it. I can't wait to see that. Dave, you mentioned this is a game, and I would agree with you that, let's just face it, it's a long season, right? But the loser of this game, the odds of them reaching their goals, I should say, whatever the preseason goals were, they were different for each of these teams. For Auburn, I think it was very clear-cut, get to 8 or more wins. For Arkansas, do whatever you need to save Sam Pittman's job. Get to 6 or more, I think probably. I don't want to say, Dave, it's desperation mode in week 4, but when both teams have a loss, boy, this feels like one you need to have. And by the way, both of these teams, Dave, it only gets harder. I believe I read a stat. Both of these teams each play 3 straight top 25 teams after this. So it only gets more difficult, right? So I just – who do you think needs this one more? Who would this loss be more damaging to when it comes to trying to achieve their goals in the 2024 season?
I think the loser of this game is literally staring at a 5-win season right in the face. I hate saying that, but I think it's true. I mean, the loser of this game is staring at a 5-win season right in the face. I mean, I got an Auburn schedule pulled up on me right here. Say they lose to Arkansas, you get Oklahoma at home. Again, not somebody you can beat for sure because they have holes too. But again, like you mentioned, another top 25 though. We'll see how they fare against Tennessee this week. But again, tough game. Then you're on the road for a month at Georgia, at Missouri. You lose to Arkansas at home. You can probably chalk those up. And again, college football is as crazy as it's ever been with the lack of continuity and the personnel side of things and on the coaching side of things. Who knows on a week-to-week basis? We saw Georgia, Kentucky last night. But for argument's sake, I don't think they're going on the road and winning in Athens or in Columbia right now. At Kentucky, maybe. Vanderbilt at home, you would hope. ULM, A&M at home, and then at Alabama. You lose this game, I think Auburn is staring at a 5 or 6 win season. And in year 2, I think everybody, I think most realistic Auburn fans would tell you, like, hey, we needed to be 8-4. You needed to be at least 500 in conference play. You needed to get a 4th conference win. You lose
momentum, Dave, is so important in college football, and both positive and negative. And it's only year 2, but no, it's year 2. I mean, look at what happened. I'm not equating this to Florida, but look at what is happening with Billy Napier in year 3 in Gainesville. If it starts going sideways and it stays going sideways, your situation can change very, very quickly. So,
and CP, on the other side, I think Arkansas, it's even tougher. I think Arkansas's got the tougher schedule than Auburn. So to answer your question, I think Arkansas probably needs it more from obviously Sam Pittman getting retained in their schedule. I mean, they play A&M in Arlington next week. Then they get it. Then Tennessee comes to town.
Dave, could I argue this? I think Auburn needs it more because I think Arkansas is screwed either way. I'm not saying this wouldn't be a really big win. I think it's highly likely they even win this game and still go 5-7.
That's fair.
I'm not saying that's 100% going to happen, but
you're saying because the schedule's harder, right?
Right, the schedule's harder, so it's like
they may end up. You talked about it, CP. Look at their November. I mean, defensively, Travis Williams statistically, love the man to death. His defenses get worse. Arkansas, one of those mid-tier SEC teams, the back half, their depth's going to get killed. I said, me and you talked about it. They could arguably play the 3 best offenses in the league in November between Ole Miss, Texas, and Missouri.
Like I think
it only gets harder.
I think it's one of those things, Dave. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the Hogs fans or Arkansas or anything, but it's like I think it's bigger for Auburn because for Arkansas, I don't want to say the Pittman era feels like a lost cause anyways, but
they're not opposed. They're not opposed right now to something new.
Yeah, exactly. And at Auburn, there's still a lot of hope and optimism, and there's off-season momentum from recruiting that, like, Hugh Freeze can still get Auburn back to winning a title.
6 year 2, people are going to be like
that goes by the wayside really quickly. And at minimum, it sets you up for, all right, it's year 3. You better win or else. It sets you up for an or else type of contract.
They hurt that recruiting. Again, I don't know this by any means. It can hurt that recruiting momentum you have. Easy ammo to go just be like, man, you really want to go there? And again, I think Auburn's going to give away their firstborn child for a quarterback in the portal this offseason. But that can change things. But overall, I mean, you're right. I see. I like the chestnut checkers move by you there, CP. I think, like you said, Arkansas fans, it's kind of like, we may just need somebody anyways. It's a new head coach. We're not opposed to it. Like you said, Auburn fans, this would be a really tough loss where it's like, I don't think it'd still be too early to say if Freeze is the guy or not, even with a loss. But you'd be sitting there being like, this isn't going the way I thought it'd be going in year 2.
It's like you said, Dave, once that doubt starts creeping in, I'm not saying they'd be like, we got to fire our coach. But once that's how it starts, right? And then
Auburn has the prime example of the guy, Gus Malzahn, who was on and off the hot seat and eventually caught up to him in the COVID year of all years.
Yeah, it starts to fester and fester. And, oh, by the way, this is a game, Dave. Every single Auburn fan on the planet mark this is a dub. You might recall, by the way, as we transition into our predictions, I picked this as one of my upsets over the summer, right? All the picks are subject to change. I picked this as kind of an upset over the summer. I picked Arkansas to beat Auburn. Boy, you would have thought, I mean, the mentions were our buddy Jake Crane was coming at my neck. Our guy Mike Gittins.
You had Auburn, 7-5 preseason?
I had Auburn 7-5. Our buddy Mike Gittins at the War Report, who we're going to link up with this week, and he was coming at my neck. Just not coming at my neck, but just kind of raising the eyebrow like, you sure about that one? Are you sure? So, and now all of a sudden we get to game week, Dave, and it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going to happen. So, on that note, Dave, Auburn, Arkansas got all the makings of one of the wackiest games the 2024 SEC football season. How do you see this one going?
Again, like I mentioned, like we're doing the
Flip a
Florida
coin.
game. We're going, flip a coin. You can show the Hollywood movie director a million scripts. You believe it all. You just go put it on Disney already. Put it on the Disney Channel. You could write this script and I'd believe it. Dude, I usually go with a matchup advantage here. But I'm going to go with the quarterback I've seen the best, and that's Taylor Green, I think. I've seen him the most. I've seen him. He's played at his best. I'm going to take the ceiling from him. I'm going to go with the best coordinator in the game. I think that's Bobby Petrino. I think Arkansas, again, if they would have played like they did last week, both Alabama teams would hammer Arkansas, Alabama and Auburn. They played UAB last week, struggled. I don't know. I think that was a little bit of a look ahead game. I heard Trey Biddy. He was doing a little press conference after the Arkansas beat writer for 247 Sports. And he said going into the week, he kind of felt like Arkansas was overlooking UAB a little bit. Because he was asking like, hey, who shows up on their personnel? Who do you like scheme-wise? And it's like, I mean, UAB rolled into that game 0-2 with no momentum. And he said Arkansas players couldn't even tell you players' names on UAB or even numbers. So he's like, kind of thought that was a little weird, like how much preparation. So he's like, I wasn't totally shocked. He's like, I was shocked as close as it was, but my point being, I think Arkansas, like you said, college football, week to week, tough loss against Oklahoma State. You're coming home against an 0-2 UAB team, not a lot of juice. SEC play on the horizon the next week. I think Bobby Petrino gets it done. I think Taylor Green, Bobby Petrino, I think key turnovers. I could see Auburn having some success early with Travis Williams being aggressive. Remember, he likes to go cover zero a lot. I could see Hugh Freeze, Ken Austin, Derek Nix having some good scheme, getting it to Jarquez Hunter in the flats in the screen game. I think ultimately, as it goes on, Arkansas is going to get them figured out. I don't trust Hank Brown in this game. He may prove me wrong. He easily could. I just don't trust him. I think Taylor Green, from what I saw with the Dampier kid with New Mexico last week, how Auburn was just busting all over, and they were totally confused, confuzzled with dealing with a running quarterback. I think Taylor Green looks good this week. I think he really does look good this week. I think it's another Jaquindon Jackson game. Like you mentioned, I like Arkansas's receivers. Another guy, Luke Hasz. I think he has a big game. I think he's incorporated in this game plan because, again, if you watch the LSU game from last year, you love him. He got hurt. I think he's flying under the radar. Look for him, Taylor Green, to have a big game. I think Arkansas wins this game. 34-27. Would not be surprised if when it's all said and done. Again, I don't think from kick to start, Arkansas is up by double digits. Wouldn't surprise me, though, if Arkansas separates in the middle of the fourth quarter. That's my bold statement of the week, probably.
It's a bold
pick.
Good pick. It's a good pick. Hey, not a bad pick. Not a bad pick. I picked that in the preseason. I picked that over the summer. I took a beating for it. Many of you will recall I did pick the Arkansas Razorbacks in what felt like over the summer is what would be a shocking upset to go onto the Plains and go into Jordan-Hare Stadium, one of the best environments in college football, and pull off the upset against the Auburn Tigers. Dave, I'm going with Auburn to win this football game. You know what? I'm buying into the Hank Brown hype. I don't know why I'm doing it. It's just somebody not named Peyton Thorne. I know it was New Mexico, but I liked what I saw. I think there was a new energy on the offensive side. I like the way he protected the football, right? Kind of that gunslinger mentality. I thought at times Peyton Thorne, you looked into the kid's eyes, it was a deer in headlights. You've talked about it. I've talked about it. We've talked about it. Auburn folks talked about it. For whatever reason, when them lights started shining, when the lights got brightest, and all due respect to the kid, he didn't rise to the occasion. This is Hank Brown's time. This is Hank Brown's time to shine. I love the weapons. The only reason I've been holding back any optimism on the Auburn Tigers is because I felt like they were severely deficient at quarterback. I felt like they had arguably the worst quarterback in the conference. I'm not saying Hank Brown is top half, but he's better than probably the worst quarterback in the conference. Cam Coleman, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Perry Thompson, Rivaldo Fairweather, Jarquez Hunter toting the rock. They have all the weapons they need on the offensive side, and Hank Brown is the trigger man. For the love of God, just don't go out there and lose the football game. I do think this is going to be a drunk, unhinged game, Dave. I think we're going to see some wackiness in this game. I think Jordan-Hare is going to be unhinged, and I can't wait to partake in it for 60 whole minutes. I like Arkansas's personnel, especially offensively. I do love the fact Travis Williams is coming back. Like you mentioned, he's going to have that chip on his shoulder. He's going to be sending the dogs in this one. I think they're going to be coming after Hank Brown, forcing the issue. I think Hugh Freeze is going to make them pay. I think Auburn knows they have to have this game. Like I mentioned, for Arkansas, it's a you'd like to win. But the Sam Pittman era is kind of already lost The Hugh Freeze era, there's a whole hell of a lot to play for. I think they will outlast the Hogs, get the job done. And oh, by the way, that defense is going to hear about it all week, how bad they are, and they looked unathletic, and they looked uninspired. I think it's a much, much better outing. Maybe not from the stat sheet perspective, but I think they'll get a couple big stops in this one that makes folks feel a little bit better about them. Either way, Hank Brown, I'm buying the hype, sir. Jordan Hare will be electric. Give me Auburn 37, Arkansas 30. I'm going back on my pick over the summer, Dave. I had Arkansas winning this game over the summer, but you know what? That was a Peyton Thorne-led Auburn Tigers team I had that upset happening against, not a Hank Brown-led team. Give me the Hank Brown hype. Give me Hank Brown to have a big game and a big outing. The Auburn Tigers have found their quarterback. 37-30, Auburn gets it done.
If this game was in Fayetteville or the neutral side, I know that's unrealistic.
I think it could sway it.
You're giving Auburn the edge because it's at Jordan Hare?
I think that's part of it. Listen, I think that's part of it. I think Jordan Hare is going to be an electric atmosphere. I know it didn't matter against Cal. I understand that, but I think there were obviously some other things that deterred the possibility of winning that football game, a.k.a. Peyton Thorne. So
the game's close in the fourth quarter. I mean, it's fair. Home field advantage. Auburn playing against
I do think it's going to be a close game in the fourth quarter. I think this is a close game.
A team like Arkansas who has not won close games in the last 2 years. They've found ways to lose close games. I mean, we saw it at the beginning of last year. We saw it already this year against Oklahoma State. In close games against teams on their level, similar level, they have found ways to lose games. I can see why you picked that for sure.
But again, Dave, like you mentioned, a coin flip football game. Who knows which way this one is going to go between these two? Let us know what you think. Are we right? Are we wrong? Who do you agree with? Who do you disagree with? How do you feel this one will shake out when Auburn and Arkansas do battle at Jordan Hare Stadium? Guys, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get those as well. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. For Dave Shumate, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the other side.